Hey there, it's JoJo the Thrifty Teacher. If you just watched my other video, same thing. I'm recording this right after. I did read Mother Bruce, the book I showed you guys about the bear that the geese were like, "Mama," and the I'm gonna tell you that the fifth graders loved it more than the third graders. I think the fifth graders got the humor of it more, but they were into it. The fifth graders were really into it. And their teacher was doing like a career research thing. So they were asking me questions about my career, and I asked them questions about their career. And some of them were doing like the things they wanted to do were amazing, the careers they wanted. I was like, you guys go with it. So it was so cool to be able to read to them. And I had some other teachers say, I wanted you to read to our class, but the time was full. And I was like, I can go read to your class anytime you want. Plus, I've worked with those teachers' kids, and I just love those sixth graders. So they're just so sweet and so kind. So I have two books. The first one is called Love in the Library. Again, JoJo the Thrifty Teacher here. I am an educator. I mentor new teachers, and I do part-time reselling. I was a fourth grade teacher for 6 years, a self-contained ELL teacher for a year, and I was a reading teacher and a social studies teacher for eighth grade for 10 years. And I've been in this position as a district mentor for a couple years. And I do thrift hauls. I am not good at doing the what sold yet because you have to put pictures up, and I'm just getting into this. And I also look at books that I have in my collection and review those books. So, Love in the Library, based on a true story of love and resilience at the Minidoka incarceration camp. And if you don't know that during World War II, we had a we had some internment camps for Japanese Americans, and yeah, we interned them Americans. Tama did not like the desert. She brushed the dust from her eyes as she walked to the library. The barbed wire fences and guard towers cast long shadows over her path. She always did her best not to look at the guards. I'm in Arizona, and we had one of these in Arizona. And I actually think that they should turn it into a site or a museum or something. Tama had taken the job in the library because she liked books. She didn't know how to be a librarian, but that didn't matter. In the camps, people did the jobs that needed to be doing, and that was that. Good morning, Tama, a voice boomed. It was George. Like every other day, George was waiting at the door for Tama with a stack of books he'd checked out only the day before. Good morning, George, Tama replied. He waited for her to unlock the library, and then he followed her inside. Good-looking guy. Tama and George had been in Minidoka for a year already. She should have graduated college the previous summer, but instead Tama was here. All the Japanese Americans from the West Coast were in the prison camps like Minidoka. Elderly people, children, babies, it didn't matter who you were, just that you were, and being a Japanese American then was treated like a crime. And though each camp was different, they were all the same, unforgettable and unjust. So if you're not aware that the reason why they did the West Coast was because when Pearl Harbor was bombed, that Hawaii, close to the coast, the West Coast, so they figured it's probably going to happen if it happens again, and all these people must have been spies, even though some of them have been here for generations. In the summer, it was brutally hot. In the winter, it was brutally cold. Rain in the fall and spring left mud through in the latrines they all needed to use. I'm going to skip some. The books were constant company, which was nice. Tama loved books. Caught in their pages were worlds bursting with color and light, love and fairness. Pressed between their covers were words and planted seeds in the garden of Tama's mind. How magical that, even in Minidoka, such a small library could fit in so much inside its four walls. Do 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 do. Boys playing baseball. Da, 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 da. So let's skip a little bit. You can't possibly be reading all those books you check out, she said. No, he replied. Do you see how long they are? I'm only human, you know. So then why come every day? She laughed. But George was not laughing. And then for the first time, she saw him, really saw George, and saw what he held close to his heart. It was her, Tama. Duh, Tama. He was coming to see you. They were married. Tama and George and their first son was born in Minidoka. They hoped for the best. Their love for their family that made was constant. Even if their injustice their family was created with was constant too. That's cute. The miracle is in us, Tama wrote in her journal, as long as we believe in change, in beauty, and hope. That miracle is hard to find sometimes, but it is in all of us. And I skipped some pages. But, oh, look at this. There's an author's note. They had 5 children. Oh, it's a grandkid that wrote that book. And then it talks about FDR signing the Executive Order 9066, which caused citizens of Japanese ancestry on the West Coast to be relocated. This was tidy language used to obfuscate the truth. Obfuscate? The American citizens were to be wrongfully imprisoned for the crime of being Japanese. Look at him. Oh my gosh. Look at him. Oh my gosh. How cute. That's amazing. So, what's what's interesting about this too is I interviewed a World War II soldier. He had been in World War II, Korean War, and Vietnam. And he went to one of the Japanese internment camps and told a group of people, a group of men, hey, you can either stay here or you can come fight in the war. And so a bunch of them said, we'll go and fight, even though we're fighting to give these imprisoned Jewish people rights, but then you're imprisoning us? Like, okay. So they went and he became best friends with this guy, one of the Japanese Americans that were in the internment camps, became best friends with them, fought over in France with them, and then unfortunately that one soldier was his best friend, ended up getting killed. I think they were in France. He was part of, I can't remember, but it was a really famous takedown. But it's just crazy how so much of our history is tied together and we don't even realize it necessarily. The other book that I want to read is Brave Girl. I did a lesson plan on this. Clara and the Shirtwaist Makers Strike of 1909. I love books that are kids' books that are based on true stories. A steamship pulls into the harbor carrying hundreds of immigrants and a surprise for New York City. The surprise is dirt poor, just 5 feet tall, and hardly speaks a word of English. Her name is Clara Lemlich. This girl's got grit, and she's going to prove it. Look out, New York. Clara knows in her bones what is right and what is wrong. What's wrong begins a few weeks after the Lemlichs move into their tenement in America. No one will hire Clara's father. They will, however, hire Clara. That's right, Clara. Companies are hiring thousands of immigrant girls to make blouses, coats, nightgowns, and other women's clothing. They only earn a few dollars a month, but it helps pay for food and rent. So instead of carrying books to school, many girls carry sewing machines to work. Clara becomes a garment worker. What I like about this too is they take illustrations, but also they have real pieces of garments in there. Look at that. Rows and rows. That's people. From dawn to dusk, she's locked up in a factory. Rows and rows of young women bend over their tables, stitching collars, sleeves, and cuffs as fast as they can. Hurry up, the bosses yell. Rat-a-tat-tat, hisses Clara's machine. The sunless room is stuffy from all the bodies crammed inside. There are 2 filthy toilets, 1 sink, and 3 towels for 300 girls to share. Clara learns the rules. If you're a few minutes late, you lose half a day's pay. If you prick your finger and bleed on the cloth, you're fined. If it happens a second time, you're fired. The doors are locked, and you're inspected every night before you leave to make sure you haven't stolen anything from the factory. So we're going to skip a few pages. So this is where they begin to fight for their rights. When the seamstresses are overworked, she says, strike. When they're underpaid, she says, strike. When they're punished for speaking up, she cries, strike. And the girls do. Each time Clara leads a walkout, the bosses fire her. Each time she pickets, her life is in danger. The bosses hire men to beat her and the other strikers. The police arrest her 17 times. They break 6 of her ribs, but they can't break her spirit. It's shatterproof. Clara hides her bruises from her parents. A few days later, she's on the picket line again, and the other girls think, if she can do it, we can do it too. For weeks, the small strike goes on, but the bosses find other young women to do the work for the same low pay and long hours. So then they talk to the union, and they're like, let's strike. So she gets up at the union meeting, and she's like, hello, let's strike. And we're not going to be patient anymore. Let's go on strike. And she starts the largest walkout of women workers in U.S. history. The next morning, the New York City is stunned by the sight of thousands of young women streaming from the factories. One newspaper calls it an army. Others call it a revolt. It's a revolt of girls, for some are only 12 years old. And the rest are barely out of their teens. In the coming weeks, Clara is called a hero. She lights up chilly union halls with her fiery pep talks. Her singing lifts the spirits of the picketers. When a group of thugs approaches, she yells, stand fast, girls. Yeah. And then they strike all winter long. And by the time that the strike is over, the bosses agree to let their staff form unions. They shorten the work week and raise their salaries. And then that emboldens others in garment factories in Philadelphia and Chicago. And then it says, and the strike convinces Clara to keep fighting for rights of workers. Her throat is hoarse, her feet are sore, but she has helped thousands of people, proving that in America, wrongs can be righted, warriors can wear skirts and blouses, and the bravest hearts may beat in girls only 5 feet tall. And then it tells you about the garment industry. And then other biographies that you can read. And the kids, when I read this with the kids, we looked this up about the table that they would get paid. So if you worked a half hour, you got 1 cent. If you worked 10 hours, you got a whole 25 cents. Isn't that amazing? So you could earn from 25 cents to $6 per day. Ridiculous. So, again, these 2 books I picked out, first of all, because they are nonfiction picture books. And it's something you can read quick with them, and then you can bring up other things to talk to them about. And again, I read these with elementary kids, and I've also read them with my middle school kids. You could find a couple books about internment camps and then do book talks. So have the different groups of your kids read the books, and then you could do a compare and contrast of the different books. With Brave Girl, you could do other strikes that have taken place led by younger people and talk about what kind of strikes they were and what the result was. So there are my two books that I highly suggest, Love in the Library and Brave Girl. Again, this is JoJo the Thrifty Teacher. Thank you for reading along with me. Have a good day.